I want you to consider how important it is to design a website that's accessible to all potential users, including those for whom accessing the web has been traditionally quite difficult. For example, those with limited vision or no vision at all, those who are deaf, those who are colorblind, and those who have limited hand dexterity. So for instance, they can't use a mouse. So there are a set of guidelines to help web developers create websites that are accessible to all potential users. They are called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. There have been 3 sets of WCAG guidelines issued over the years. The first set, 1.0, were issued back in the 1990s. The second set, 2.0, were issued in 2008. And the third set, 2.1, were issued in 2018. Obviously, these updates to the guidelines have occurred as the World Wide Web has evolved over time. And these guidelines help developers create websites that are not only more accessible to the populations I mentioned previously, but to everyone, and thus by default, to people who might have limitations that you haven't even considered. There are 3 levels of conformance to the guidelines: A, AA, and AAA. If your website states that you've met level A compliance, that means you've met about 25 criteria listed under the guidelines. If you've met AA, that means you've met an additional 13 criteria. And if your website says that you have met AAA compliance, that means you've met an additional 23 or so criteria. AAA compliance is pretty difficult to achieve. In this course, we'll focus on some of the more basic criteria listed under level A. The WCAG guidelines are organized around 4 principles. Let's go through them. The first one is called perceivable. This means that your users must be able to perceive the information that your website presents. The second is called operable. This means that your users must be able to operate your website interface. In other words, your website can't require interactions that are difficult or impossible for some users. Third, understandable. Your users must be able to understand the information you're presenting on the website and the operations that you expect them to perform when they visit that website. Finally, robust. Your users must be able to access the content of your website as technologies advance. This is one that we've seen problematic for some organizations when they were not quite ready to make their website accessible to people who are only accessing it through a mobile device. Stay tuned for more videos where I'll give you some simple ideas of things that you can do to make your website more accessible to more people using these 4 principles as guidance.